If you had to talk about the current economic conditions that are going on with the inflatable industry.
With wages and cost of living and stuff is increasing, we don't see people spending less to celebrate.
What do you think about some of the different challenges that people might have, some of these areas that might be in different climates?
You just really have to be able to think ahead, plan ahead, and be realistic. There isn't a guarantee. Weather is a factor no matter where you live.
Are there any particular markets that you find that are right now oversaturated?
It's just how hard you're willing to work, the choices that you make, the products that you buy.
Hello and welcome to the Jump Orange podcast. My name is Alan, and today I have a very special guest with us today. We have Miss Jana Thompson. How you doing today?
Good, how are you? Thanks
Awesome.
for having me.
Oh, we're very happy to have you. She is the owner of Do the Happy Bounce and Marketing Ninja, and she services the Northport area in Florida. And today we're going to be having a podcast about the current economic conditions with the inflatable industry, and maybe kind of give some tips and, maybe some advice on how to handle some of the concerns that a lot of people are having right now. So to maybe get started with that, maybe you can kind of talk about, since you've been in business for inflatables for 15 years and you've been in marketing for over longer than that, maybe you can kind of start off, maybe talk about maybe over the last 15 years, some of the major ebbs and flows that you've seen in the market somewhere in the last 15 years.
Absolutely. I think that basically, the industry is pretty solid, but we had COVID, and that was a turning point, I think, for commercial operators who do big scale events, and then for backyards, because there was a recession, years ago. Most of us weren't in business then. We kind of started like right after that, and there was a demand, but it just wasn't as high. So when COVID hit, the corporate side and the event side took, the back burner to backyards, and backyards became so much more prevalent. There was more awareness, more search volume on Google for people because they were trying to find things to do to, entertain their kids and their family and that kind of stuff with being able to stay home. So more people became familiar with bringing activities to your house versus going out to do them. So I think that COVID built the industry. It hurt the bigger companies that couldn't transition, to backyards and that kind of stuff because they were schools, churches, corporate. But then it helped kind of push forward the backyard industry that had never really had a spotlight on it.
That's really interesting. That talk about COVID. I mean, that was a once in a lifetime thing, hopefully.
Right.
And but yeah, it's amazing how different sections of our lifetime and in the industry and the economic ebbs and flows affect different industries differently. That's pretty
Right.
interesting to say. But I guess that's kind of talking about some things that have happened in the past. If you had to, like right now, like if you had to talk about the current economic conditions that are going on with the inflatable industry, where would you rank it on a scale from 1 to 10, and why would you give it that rating?
Sure. I think that the industry is pretty strong. I think on a scale from 1 to 10, I would say it's probably like 7.5. There's a lot of opportunity still untapped. Marketing is becoming more prevalent and relevant. And so people are being able to get in front of more people than ever because it's kind of the norm now. And then there's still, quite a bit of demand, and the population is growing, kids, all these things where the demand just continues, to get bigger. So I feel like the industry is really strong. It's just not like at the tipping point either, So anybody who's looking to get started in the party rental industry or in the event space, people are wanting to do, fancier or extra or more special or more over the top. So there's a lot more opportunity now, even though the economic climate, with wages and cost of living and stuff is increasing, we don't see people spending less, to celebrate.
So given that the current status of what you just kind of mentioned, you give it a nice solid 7.5 rating. I think that's a good, sounds like a healthy industry. What do you think about some of the different challenges that people might have, or maybe some of these areas that might be in different climates or different geographies? Where do you think people kind of fit with that, and maybe what they should be concerned with or what they should be excited about in any of these kind of different climates or different geographical locations?
Sure. I think climate is a huge thing and people don't realize how much it impacts the industry. Even in the markets where it isn't as seasonal and they operate, 12 months out of the year, weather plays a big factor, whether it's temperature or wind. In Florida, for example, wind is usually our biggest problem point. It isn't rain. We don't care if it rains, everything gets wet. We're not canceling because it's raining. We're canceling because of high wind. And so if a season is longer, if they're winter season or snow, they're getting snow in New York right now. So it's a perfect example. Even though we're going into April and you're thinking spring, we just had the first day of spring. Now those people are kind of like shutting down again, where they were able to squeeze in a few rentals. Now they're having to hold back. So there's a lot of inconsistency in pretty much the climate area because you're going on, Mother Nature and what's changing. Florida had the coldest winter in 10 years this year. So we saw a decrease in revenue and search volume due to that, and so it's hard to adjust in any climate when there just isn't like a straight line, that you're following, because it's more of like a roller coaster. You never know what you're going to get. And that, I think that is one of the challenges of, the industry, is just being able to forecast, what's ahead and what's to come, and, growth and that kind of thing. It's not like your typical, oh, you should grow, 10% year over year or anything like that.
So the climate has a big part on your day-to-day operations. And of course, that can vary day to day within itself. So learning how to be flexible with that, and knowing that, you're going to have to probably have a couple cancellations and things like that, but you have to build that into your pricing probably, right?
Absolutely. I think just being aware is really important. Last year, in Florida, we had 2 back-to-back hurricanes on my coast. That impacted us. 2 years before that, we had a catastrophic hurricane. So even though those things are unlikely, that was that was like a 2-year span where we had large hurricanes that impacted, probably 15% of our revenue. To lose 15% of your revenue, that's a lot of money, because the profit margin isn't huge either. So you just really have to be able to think ahead, plan ahead, and be realistic. Like, there isn't a guarantee. Weather is a factor no matter where you live. Again, there's states that see snow in May. So all of those things factor into it and may impact, your year, your season.
Yeah, that's always a good thing to think about, is, knowing where your business is, when your peak sales are going to be, and all of that. Now, another concern that some people have is actually not just about the climate and all that kind of stuff, but maybe they want to learn a little bit more, or maybe get your insights on saturation levels. Because, are there any particular markets that you find that are right now maybe oversaturated? And even more so, are there any kind of areas that you think, across the country that might be, ready and prime for like a business to be put in? Because, with you with your marketing company, you work with clients all across the entire country. And so you kind of know, hey, this is big here, this is not so big here. So maybe give us a little insight on your knowledge on some of the saturation levels across the country.
Sure. So historically, Texas, Florida, Georgia, Arizona, even parts of California are really strong markets. Those are more year round. California falls off a little bit, but everywhere else is, they're getting at least 10 solid months. Georgia had a, really cold winter last year. So it really varies, but the prices in a lot of those states are less than the northern states. So even though northern operators have a shorter season, they're able to charge more than the companies that are in business all year round. So it's like a sliding scale. It's very interesting to watch and to see, revenue wise and stuff like that. As far as, oversaturated, I think each business is kind of what you make of it. You're going to build it, you're going to create this foundation, and it's what you put into it is what you're going to get out. And so I don't think anywhere is too oversaturated. It's just how hard you're willing to work, the choices that you make, the products that you buy, the time that you invest is really going to determine that. On the flip side, people typically say Florida, Texas, California, Arizona, because they're more populated, the climate is better, and then a lot of these places don't have like super strict regulation, so they consider oversaturated. It kind of is what it is. As far as like getting started in the industry, I feel like the sweet spot is, like a 50 to 80,000 range population in your immediate, service area, and kind of just growing like organically at first and then building up. We see a lot of startups in Oklahoma do really well, startups in Texas, Ohio. I mean, really, we have clients that start with $0 and do a million in their first year. It's rare, but it's what you put into it, the strategy, your demographic, your marketing. There's just so many pieces to the puzzle of success.
So there's definitely no excuse for, hard work. If you do put in the work, it's going to be, you're going to make it happen. It's going to be successful. But obviously there's a lot of pieces that, moving pieces that are constantly moving on. And like you said, learning to be flexible. But to kind of maybe tie up everything in a nice little bow for this wonderful podcast that we're having today. This is the question, the $1 million question that everybody wants to know, because we were talking about $1 million, is where do you see the inflatable industry going in the next, let's say, kind of short bit? Because for the rest of 2025 and maybe the next couple of years, where do you see the industry going? And then maybe some tips for anyone that might just be getting started, or someone who's really interested in getting started. Maybe some helpful tips to get them over that edge to say, okay, I'm ready to make this. I'm going to make this my business.
I think that the industry is only going to get stronger. We have better inflatables, more options than ever, and so separating yourselves, making yourself stand out is so important, and the opportunity is endless. We used to see like all primary colors and that kind of stuff, and when marble vinyl came out, people were like, oh, this is ugly, and I'm like, this is amazing. This is extra special. And so we're seeing designs become more creative and just really more awareness, more advertising. So the more people that know about bringing convenience to their backyard, the better your business is going to be. On the flip side, starting a business and tips and tricks and that kind of thing, it really goes back to the foundation. I would say 7 to 10 units is a solid number to start with. Always start with a website with a booking software. It really just sets the expectation and gets you ready for success. Add a marketing piece into that, buying the right inventory, making sure that, you meet the requirements for insurance, and if you have regulation in your state, licenses, that kind of stuff, sales tax. Those are huge things. Like I talk to operators every single day, 7 days a week, countless hours, out of the day. And it's so interesting to see how each person's journey is different, and, decisions, how if you invest $70,000, that doesn't mean you're automatically going to be successful. If you invest $70,000 into a business or into equipment, you've got to have a plan to get that equipment out. It isn't like, I'm going to buy $70,000 of inflatables from JumpOrange and I'm going to, boom, be successful. And sadly, a lot of people go into it without that understanding. They say, oh, I started with 20 units. Okay, great. How are you going to get those 20 units out? I don't know. They're just going to get rented. I'm like, it doesn't work like that. In a perfect world, that'd be amazing. But I think that really just coming up with a plan and having clarity and, a kind of a call to action almost is really going to set most people up for success. And with the Facebook groups and podcasts like this is a perfect opportunity to get knowledge for free. It's easier than ever to be successful and to learn the right way, the legal way, and to not have to do a lot of the legwork that even I did 15 years ago.
Well, I mean, knowledge is power, and knowledge can also be dollars, right?
Right, absolutely.
Well, I think that was a terrific way to kind of wrap everything up for us today. So I will say, thank you guys for enjoying us with this podcast today. And a special thanks to Jana. Thank you again.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, you're full of so much important knowledge and so much experience, and you're able just to and 10 minutes or so spew out so much helpful advice. And if you want more of this advice, definitely check us out on some of our future podcasts. You can check us out on YouTube or anywhere where you check out your podcast, which might be Spotify, Apple Podcast, wherever you might get that. Please go ahead and leave us comments, reviews. We'd be glad to hear about those. But until we see you guys again, thank you again, Jana, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.